WebVR game demo. Since it's WebXR actually, it runs in the browser, so anyone can access it without downloading it, and you can even explore it a bit on your computer browser. So here we have some lasers in this enclosed room and a pendulum with a box. And the goal of this educational game is for students to hone their physics skills by calculating what angle they need to move the pendulum. Currently the pendulum's at 0 degrees. You can see the angle there. So calculate the angle to each of the pendulum so that it hits the box, and it will block the first laser so that you can escape the room. So here on the wall, we have numbers for the mass, the distance, so that the student can calculate the angle. There's a formula sheet on this wall, and a calculator as well. The calculator is imported from HTML, and it currently doesn't work yet. Need to figure out how to get the clicks to work. But anyway, let's say the student has used these numbers to calculate that the angle of the pendulum should be 20 degrees to move the box the right amount. So then the student can use their hand, and they can grip it and then move the pendulum until it's at 20 degrees. Whoops, I released it too soon there. 20 degrees. It hit the box and it hit the first laser, and as you can see, let's look at it. It blocked the laser. The lasers are blocked, so now we can escape the room.
So let's walk a bit through my code for this. The code is in HTML and JavaScript because that's what the A-frame WebXR engine uses. So here I have a bunch of imports, some of them for the main WebXR. There's for teleportation, the hand, my own scripts, importing the calculator as an HTML, and the physics engine. So here's the main body of the code. So I defined a scene that uses the physics engine. And for every object that I want to appear in the scene, I use HTML tags to generate it. So for the image of the formula sheet, I use an A-frame image tag. For the player itself, I use A-frame entity tags for the camera, the controls. And for every script or attribute I want to add to the entity, I just use an HTML tag into the object. So for example, the camera scripts are look controls and WASD controls in the A-frame library, so I just type them here and it will automatically add those scripts to the object. Here another example is hand controls, and I added the attributes that it's the right hand, the color, and the hand model style. For the physics objects, of course I give it the position, the size, everything. And I also give it physics attributes like whether it's dynamic or static, how heavy it is, whether it should rotate on these axes or not. The friction I actually added myself to the physics engine, and whether it should sleep at a certain speed, things like that. So I have the pendulum arms, the pendulum rope, which has a hinge pivot on the physics. Here are the text boxes. And this one's the actual pendulum weight. It has a script for the angle and the drag angle. And this one also has a hinge connecting it to the rope. And the walls have listeners for when the laser is hitting it. And this is the first laser. So let's look at the scripts I've written. So this one is the laser script. This one's attached to each of the walls. And basically it listens for when the laser hits the wall. Every frame, talk is after every frame is generated. So if the laser intersects with the wall, then it generates a new laser so that it bounces off all the walls. And as well, if the box hits the laser, it'll stop the other lasers. Or if it leaves the laser, then it starts the other lasers again. Another script is the pendulum angle script. This one just gets the angle of the pendulum, and it'll display it on the text at the wall. This one's a script to make it so that when you grip your hand, it collides with the pendulum. And this is the whole physics engine where I added some friction stuff. And yeah, that's basically my code. I definitely learned a lot doing this project. WebXR is a relatively new thing. It used to be called WebVR, and they updated a lot of things in it in the past year, which did make it a bit difficult to do some things. I had to use the newer version of a physics engine that was basically in a beta stage, so I had to make the friction changeable by myself, things like that, and there wasn't really a WebVR calculator yet, even though there were a lot for regular VR if I had used Unity to make a downloadable VR application. I definitely think WebXR, sorry, may actually be the future of educational VR, since schools probably don't want to make students download something. It's really easily accessible, and also if you make it purchasable, you could buy a login instead of having to deal with all the problems of sharing VR application purchases. Yeah, I learned a lot about using HTML and JavaScript for a game. I've never done that before, even without WebVR. I've been interested in HTML5 and stuff like that. I also learned how to deploy it to GitHub pages so that I could actually access it in the browser on my headset without going to my laptop's IP address or something like that. So yeah, this was a super educational project. And I might consider doing more projects like this or even continuing with this one.